A black embassy officer gets arrested by the local police because they think the embassy officer is impersonating the police. I kid you not. You can't make this script up. A Maryland cop pulled out all the stops on a black embassy officer. Let's put up a picture of the officer, okay? Let's keep his picture up. The officer is in full uniform and arrested that officer, who's an actual officer, for impersonating an officer. The former Embassy of Qatar special officer, Stephen Alexander, was trying in this picture to open his eyes after being pepper sprayed by the cop while walking through a national park. This actually happened in 2018. The reason why we're talking about it today is because that officer has now filed suit. Alexander was charged with resisting arrest, obstructing a police officer, even though he's the police, failure to obey a reasonable and lawful order that a law enforcement officer makes to prevent a disturbance to the public peace, which is a dumbass law, and impersonating a police officer. So he spent some time in jail. He didn't spend a long time in jail, but he spent some time in jail. According to a lawsuit obtained by the Atlanta Black Star, I'm gonna get into the background of this. Now remember, this man should have never went to jail at all, okay? He did nothing illegal. Alexander was walking home with groceries after night shift when a taser-drawn Maryland police officer approached him and demanded that he show his credentials. When Alexander refused, the officer pointed his firearm at him and demanded that he get on the ground. Once he was on the ground, the officer pepper sprayed Officer Alexander before putting him in handcuffs. As a result, Officer Alexander lost his officer job, had to fight criminal charges, suffered years of emotional distress. His attorney said he is now suing Maryland National Capital Park, who's been on Indisputable before for other crazy things, and Planning Commission police and the police officer for violating his rights and for excessive force. One of Alexander's attorneys said he has post-traumatic stress from what he felt was a life or death scenario. I'm sure he thought it was. In his lawsuit, Alexander is seeking monetary damages. The MNCPPC police officer, Mel Proctor, said he pulled out his taser because Alexander was wearing a ballistic vest and something around his waist with pouches. He drew his gun because he noticed Alexander had a gun holster on his hip protruding from under his coat. Yeah, it's called a police uniform. Yeah, that's what he had on. He was coming from work. He told you that. Proctor tried to paint Alexander as challenging in his report. They lied on the police report. They realized they were 100% in the wrong. So what did they do? They violated his rights again by lying on the police report, which by the way is a crime. The report said Alexander had asked him, "What are you going to do? Shoot me?" But Alexander's lawyer said he begged for his life. All right. The officer put this gun back in the holster and he sprayed Alexander in his eyes because he started to unzip his coat after Proctor told him not to, he wrote. He did not have his body-worn camera on during the interaction. While Alexander was dealing with the effects of the pepper spray, Proctor slammed him to the ground by the hood of his coat, put his knee in the man's back, handcuffed him, and sprayed in his face, the lawsuit says. The lawsuit also alleges Proctor went to great lengths to ensure Alexander was terminated from his job. There's more. So on May 11th, 2018, Prince George's District Court Judge Byron Barino dropped all the charges against Alexander and criticized the prosecutor for even pursuing the case. Here's what the judge said in court, all right? Judge said, and I quote, "This is questionable at best. A lawful stop? Mr. Alexander did nothing wrong other than walking through a park after having worked a long, hard day, carrying his belongings from work and carrying his groceries. And a police officer who wasn't following protocol only exacerbated the situation by making it worse. And that was clear from his own testimony. Alexander wished that this never happened. It has traumatized him and his family. So let me tell you what went down. This is a pissing contest, okay? The cop said, stop, prove to me you're the police, okay? Already violating protocol. You gotta have some pretext here. You gotta have some pretextual reason to even detain someone and ask them a question. You had none. This is a brother in a police outfit, a uniform. He's at work, he's coming from work, and you now need to challenge the authority. And as soon as the young brother in the police uniform did not say, yes, sir, boss, as soon as that happened, that's when the cop decided, oh, it's going to be some problems. Not only is it unprofessional, it is in fact criminal. Is the cop being charged? The cop who did this, who violated not only policy, but also committed criminal assault against Mr. Alexander? Where are the charges at? All right, Jessica, thoughts here.
Yeah, first question is just, is it a crime to go get groceries? No, there's nothing wrong with that. Is that a reason to be incarcerated? No. Is that a reason to lose your job? No. And you might say, well, technically, he didn't show his ID, he was resisting arrest, and there's of course these laws that allow officers to use force pretty much with impunity, like disturbing the peace. And that's really what happened here, is that's what the officers decided to do. But is it in your heart right that what happened happened? Because law and justice are not always the same. And for me, when I think about what happened here, it was wrong. And I hope he wins this case he has against the police, because he lost a lot of income, because he lost his job because of this. Not only that, but the damage of being incarcerated over this and being tased and being tackled. This was a traumatic experience. So I hope he wins, and I hope we have accountability here.
Yeah, and I actually think he will win this case. I say that because the judge's quote was on the record that can be utilized in a civil case. I think this is going to be clear cut. Likely the jurisdiction is going to settle out of court because the evidence is overwhelming that there was no criminal action taking place and there was no suspicion of criminal activity. And really, the conversation should be, what charges will the cop get who enacted this ridiculous arrest?